Hi everyone, welcome to today's lecture on how to do IELTS writing task 1. Whether you are preparing for the academic or general training test, understanding the criteria is key to achieving a high band score. Let's break it down step by step, focusing on the 4 key assessment areas. So, in IELTS writing task 1, you will get a question where you have to explain something visual. This could be a bar chart, line graph, table, or even a diagram. The idea is to describe what's shown, highlight the key points, and compare things if needed. For example, if you see a graph about how many people visited different museums over 10 years, you would first talk about the general trend, like if visits went up, down, or stayed steady. Then you would pick out specific details like which museum had the most visitors in a certain year and how things compare between them. The trick is to use clear and accurate language. You don't need super fancy words, just use the right terms like rise, fall, peak, or remain stable. And it's all about organizing your answer. Start with an introduction where you rephrase the question, then give an overview of the main trends, and finally add the detailed description. In IELTS writing task 1, your score will be based on 4 criteria. First of all, the lexical resource. This doesn't mean you need to use overly complicated or rare words. Instead, focus on choosing the right words. Use appropriate vocabulary for describing data. For example, instead of repeating increase, you could use synonyms like rise, grow, or climb. Use advanced but simple vocabulary. Words like fluctuate, plateau, and peak can show your command of language without being too complex. And avoid repetition. Use a variety of terms and phrases. For instance, instead of always saying went up, say experienced growth or rose sharply. Next is grammar. And grammar is evaluated based on accuracy. Your sentence should be free of grammatical errors. And use a variety of sentence structures, including complex and compound sentences. For example, this is a simple sentence. Sales increased by 10%. And this is the complex form of this sentence. While sales increased in January, they experienced a slight decline in February. Now, use subordinate clauses effectively. For instance, although immigration from the West Indies decreased after 1980, it has risen significantly during the previous 2 decades. Okay, now if you get a question like this one, the graph below shows the number of people immigrating to the UK from 3 different countries between 2000 and 2020. Summarize the key features and make comparison where relevant. Now, here's how you can approach the question. Describe the overall trend. You would start by describing the general pattern. For example, overall immigration numbers from the 3 countries saw a significant increase from 2000 to 2010, followed by a decline in the next decade. Next, you would point out important details like when the highest or lowest points happened. The peak of immigration occurred in 2005 from country A, while country B saw a steady increase throughout the period. Now, compare the countries. Finally, you would compare the trends between the different countries. Immigration from country A fluctuated dramatically, while country C remained relatively stable over the 20 years. In short, the key to task achievement is to make sure you cover all parts of the question. If the task asks you to describe, summarize, and compare, make sure you do each one clearly. Missing any part will affect your score. So, it's important to follow the instructions carefully. In IELTS writing task 1, coherence and cohesion is about how well your essay flows and how clearly your ideas are connected. Your goal is to make sure writing a well-organized and easy-to-follow essay. To do this, it's important to break your essay into 3 parts: an introduction, an overview, and a description. Start with the introduction, where you paraphrase the question in 1 or 2 sentences to make sure you understand what's being asked. Then, in your overview, you should provide a summary of the main trends or patterns without going into too much detail. Use a linking word like overall or from an overall perspective to start this part. You don't need to describe every little detail here, just give a big picture on what's happening. Next, in the description paragraph, you will go into the specifics. Here, you describe the data, pointing out the trends, changes, or comparison that the question asks for. Just remember, don't include personal opinions or assumptions. Only focus on what the data shows. To make sure your ideas flow smoothly, use linking words like however, whereas, in contrast, and meanwhile to connect your sentences and paragraphs. This guides the reader from one point to the next, making your writing feel organized and easy to follow. So, by using these strategies, divide your essay into clear sections, summarize the main points, describing data without assumption, and using linking words, you will improve the coherence and cohesion of your writing. When writing about graphs, bar charts, or tables in IELTS Writing Task 1, it's helpful to use clear and simple sentence structure that allow you to present the data effectively. One common structure is subject plus verb plus adverb, like the population increased significantly between 2000 and 2010. This structure is useful when you want to describe how much something changed or the intensity of the change. Another helpful structure is there plus be verb plus noun phrase, such as there was a sharp decline in sales in March. This one works well when you are talking about something that happened at a specific time or in a specific category. Both structures are simple yet effective in clearly conveying the trends and changes in the data. By using them, you can ensure that your sentences are direct, easy to understand, and accurately reflect the information provided in the graph or chart. When writing about trends in graphs, bar charts, or tables, it's important to avoid repeating the same word or phrases. Repetition can make your writing sound monotonous and less sophisticated. For example, instead of using the word rose multiple times, you can vary your vocabulary by using phrases like showed an upward trend, experienced a steady increase, registered significant growth. These alternatives keep your writing fresh and demonstrate a wider range of vocabulary. Varying your sentence structures also help avoid repetition and adds depth to your response. For example, instead of always saying the population rose, you might say there was a marked rise in the population or the population saw a steady climb. This not only makes your writing more engaging but also helps you showcase your language proficiency. When working on IELTS Writing Task 1, there are a few important writing tips that can help you manage your time and focus on the task effectively. First, make sure your response is at least 150 words but stay within 20 minutes. You don't need to write an essay, just write a well-organized, clear description of the data. Avoid spending too much time on any one part of the task, as you have a limited amount of time. Secondly, don't include a conclusion or personal opinion unless the question specifically asks for one. The task is about describing data, so focus on presenting the information as it is. You should only describe the trends, changes, or comparison shown in the graph, table, or chart. Avoid assumptions or extra details that are not in the part of the provided data. For example, if you are asked to describe immigration trends, don't guess why certain trends occurred or give personal opinions on what might have happened. Just stick to what the graph tells you. By following these simple guidelines, you will ensure that your writing is on point, well focused, and accurate. Let's go through an example to understand how to structure your response for IELTS Writing Task 1. Imagine you have given a graph showing the immigration trends from two regions, the West Indies and India-Pakistan, between 1960 and 2000. Here's how you might approach it. For the introduction part, you should start by paraphrasing the question. That means restating what the graph shows in your own words briefly. For example, the chart illustrates immigration patterns from two regions, the West Indies and India-Pakistan, between 1960 and 2000. Now come for the overview. After your introduction, you need to provide an overview. This is where you summarize the key trends or patterns without going into too much detail. You might write something like, from an overall perspective, immigration from both regions rose between 1960 and 1980. However, immigration from the West Indies declined sharply after 1980, while India and Pakistan saw consistent growth. Here, you are giving a big picture of the trend, describing the rise, the peak, and the decline, but without specific numbers or deep details. This helps set the stage for more detailed description that will follow in the next paragraph. For general training writing, especially when you are asked to write a formal letter, the way you address the recipient and close your letter is important. If you know the name of the person you are writing to, you should start the letter with Dear Mr. or Dear Mrs. followed by their surname. For example, Dear Mr. Chaudhary or Dear Mrs. Chaudhary. When closing the letter, you should use Yours sincerely. For example, closing would look like this: Yours sincerely, your name. If you don't know the recipient's name, you should address the letter as Dear Sir or Madam. For the closing in this case, use Yours faithfully. For example, this distinction helps show your attention to detail and appropriateness in formal correspondence, and it will help you ensure your writing is properly structured for the IELTS exam. With these strategies, you will not only write confidently but also achieve a high band score on IELTS Writing Task 1. Regular practice will help you refine your skills, understand the types of questions, and improve your ability to describe trends, summarize data, and compare information effectively. Soon, you will be well on your way to mastering this part of the exam. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more IELTS tips. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.